Today I have with me BD Erickson from Satic Company outside of Missoula, Montana. And I am so privileged to have you on the show with me today. And I have a bunch of questions for you. So let's just get started. Maybe give me a little bit of your background. Why did you start Satic? What problem were you interested in solving?
You know, nobody wants to hear too much about me, and it's always a little embarrassing when you share your story because it's personal. But my wife was killed in an auto accident when we lived in Hawaii. My son and I wanted to be closer to home. We moved back to Missoula, Montana, and in a measure of haste and probably not our full mental capacity, we bought a home nearly directly under power lines. Now, not directly, don't go over the roof of our house, but boy, right, very near our deck. He and I did not take note of it really at the time. It was a week or two later, he and I were sitting on the deck and we looked up and I said, wow, look at the size of these power lines. How did we miss these? And he and I had a really good laugh together, father and son, that he and I had missed something so huge because we're both so visual. Okay, well, fast forwarding a little bit, my son had perfect attendance in school. He had straight A's and was generally well liked by students and teachers alike. The first year when we moved back to Missoula, Montana, that pattern repeated. Perfect attendance, excellent marks, student of the month. He was himself. After that first year passed, he became a little more sickly, missing some days, just not feeling good, not feeling like himself. His grades slipped, his attitude slipped. He was still pleasant, but more anxious, a little more irritable, etc. So, you know, you start going down the list in your brain. Is it because mom's not here? She was such a great mom. She was such a great person. Am I doing it well enough myself? Is he adjusting to the new school? Is it something that he's eating, something that he's drinking? You know, you just go down the list as a parent trying to deduce this. And when we took him to the doctor, they wanted to put him on pills. And that was not my first go-to, was to drug my child with pharmaceuticals. And so as I just, you know, kind of became my own physician, if you will, talking to friends and family, people in the community that had similar issues and Googling it, his symptoms really lined up with something that I did not know existed, which is EHS, electro hypersensitivity. And his anxiety, his inability to get good, deep, restful sleep, feeling over anxious about things that seemed very real to him, but weren't scary really to the rest of us. And it soon became pretty clear that something in his environment, Virginia, was different. And that different thing in his environment was showing up in his personal well-being. And so, you know, I set out to find out how you can mitigate this. We were not in a position where we could immediately move out of that home. And I also suffered as a, you know, a rational, healthy human being. Well, if we move out of this house, some other family is going to move into the same problem. And you have a pregnant female, you have other children that are going to suffer the same issue. And I couldn't do that in good conscience. Even if we moved, I was going to tell them, hey, this is frying my kid. You might not want to move here. How the heck do you sell it when you're that honest, right? So I began to investigate products out there that existed. And there were a few products on the market, but you have to realize this is, you know, nearly 20 years ago now. There weren't that many people in the know. Some of the products seemed a little woo-woo for my brain. Now we know a lot of these things work. But at the time, with my limited understanding, my little limited experience, I just set out on this journey. I thought, well, man, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to have to do it myself. And so that was when we went to work. I had a few dollars from my own career path. I consider myself a good leader. And I just started to build the team I needed to develop the products that we have today. And our products are in second or third generation now. Because as you do something, once you finally get it done and built, I mean, this is our Gen 1 product. This is the very first guy right here. It's actually one of my prototypes. Was a little guy on a cord with the blinking lights and stuff like that. And you know, after you make it for a few years, a couple of things happen. You realize how you could have done it better, and you get customer feedback on how you can do it better. So our products are in Gen 2 or Gen 3 right now because of our effortless pursuit to make the finest EMF and dirty electricity filtering products on the planet today. We feel that we do really at any price.
So we're talking about dirty electricity, which is also electromagnetic radiation, yes. Correct?
Yeah.
So what are the sources of dirty electricity? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's not the dirty electricity that makes you sick, it's the subsequent radiation, right? You said it well. So this comes from things that distort, degrade, upset, change the natural frequency and standard parameters of the electricity. So we live in a world of alternating current. Alternating current will create two fields. You get the magnetic field from the current, from the amount of electricity that flows, and you get the electric field from the voltage, from the pressure. So those things, if the electricity is clean within these parameters, it has less negative biological effect. It has less dirty electricity or radiation. So what happens is when the electricity, let's say, leaves the panel, travels through the wires to an outlet in your home, that outlet now powers a device. Through the operation of that device, it degrades, it distorts, harms the quality of the electricity, which now returns on the neutral, which is also called the common, which is important because it's common to all the circuits now, and returns back to the panel. And so if you have a computer, something with a switch mode power supply, people say, what's that? Well, that's actually pretty easy, and you know it in real life. When you got your fax machine or your printer or whatever, it takes a special cord. You can't lose that cord because that cord has got kind of a funky black box somewhere in the middle of that cord, right? So that is changing the electricity. That's what has to have that cord. Or on your smartphone or something, you can't just plug it into the wall. You need your charger. You need that little device, your little rectifier that will change that from alternating current to direct current. LEDs, for example, are light emitting diodes. What's a diode? A diode's a one-way door. Why? Why one-way door? Because alternating current shifts in and out. It moves back and forth, and direct current goes direct. So what a diode does is when it moves this way, it shuts the door so it can't go back. Then it moves forward, it shuts the door, it can't go back. So you have this clapping, if you will. That's not how alternating current is supposed to work. So I'm not saying that the inventor of the LED was nefarious. I'm just saying that by its simple operation, just by the way it operates, it distorts the waveform and creates this dirty electricity. Why is that bad? Because of the subsequent radiation. And so now we're living in an area, in a space that's been affected by the devices that we use. And now we have dirty electricity or radiation in our space. And whether or not dirty electricity and radiation is bad for you is beyond contestation. Of course it's bad for you. You could argue how bad. I could argue that with you all day, right? But the fact that it's harmful has been well documented and proven on everything from dairy cows to strawberries.
So I've heard you say that there are basically three sources of dirty electricity. And so the first source would probably be from your power pole, or what if you had solar and wind? I mean, those are theoretically clean electricity or clean power. Could you just tell us what happens with solar or wind before it gets to the breaker box?
So I realized, forgive me, that I went on a tangent, didn't answer your question. Dirty electricity really does come from three main sources, right? So it's going to come from the service, which can be the utility. That could be a generator. That could be the solar panels or wind turbine. It's coming in from whatever source is creating it. That's number one. Dirty electricity is fed to our house by whatever service we're pulling from. Number two, we create dirty electricity as described with the use of our devices and our things. And number three, the wiring in your home is an antenna. Like I remember as a kid driving down, I'm a little bit older, so you got FM signal in town, right? Once you got out on the prairie, you didn't get FM anymore. Got scratchy, you'd switch to AM, right? And that landed on the antenna on the hood of our car. Well, that was 2 or 3 feet of aluminum. The copper wiring in your house is far superior conductant. It's made for that. It's copper wiring. You have potentially a mile of it in your home. So that becomes a super antenna. So the 4G tower and the 5G tower and Netflix and DirecTV and the LTE and Dish Network and just all of it is sending signals. Where do those signals land? Virginia, they land on antennas. That's where signals land. That's why we use antennas. And so the wiring in your house becomes an antenna. So those are the three main areas that it comes from, which now if you know that, you're empowered because at least you know, hey, where am I getting it from? If So solar and wind and all these things are lovely. I am a renewable energy person on some level. I won't get started on how they harvest batteries, but the solar panel makes direct current. Direct current is not usable in its regular form in our house because sans your phone and your tablet, everything in your house runs on alternating current. So now we need a device. We need an inverter to create this, use this direct current from a battery, from a solar panel, etc., and turn that into alternating current. Alternating current is very different. It shifts, it has a higher voltage, it can go farther distance, etc. And just by the operation of that device, we're going to now have what we call and consider dirty electricity. So we say solar panels are clean in that they're green, they're renewable, they're not fossil fuel, but is the electricity clean? It's not. The direct current pre the inverter is clean. The alternating current past the inverter, where you and I would engage it in our life, is very, very almost the dirtiest. So generator power is dirty number one. Anything from an inverter, which is solar and wind and anything battery, is dirty number two. The levels are off the chart.
So how do you get rid of this dirty electricity in the home? What technology can you share with us that will take care of this issue?
Yeah, so the first part is empowering to know it. And you and I have been friends for a long time, and we know that sometimes when you bring this up, you get relegated to the foil hat wearing contingency a little bit. And the reality is that you have to open your ears and your eyes and your heart to accept that dirty electricity is real and the radiation is bad for you. That's number one, right? Just opening your mind to this new idea. And second of all, knowing where the causes are to eliminate those causes. And one easy way to eliminate the stuff that's on the electrical system, which would come from a couple of those sources, what's coming in from the house to the house, how I'm degrading it by using it, and then what's landing on it would be a filter. And, you know, one of our products, I know that you're very familiar, I try to describe it really as a Brita filter for water, if you will, for your electricity. So what's a little water filter do, right? I don't care what brand, it's got activated charcoal. It takes the things out of the water that you don't want. It takes the things out of the water that are bad for your biological being and filters them out, giving you pure water. And so the EMF and dirty electricity eliminators, the filters on the left of our screen here.
Here, I can open that up for you.
These are just filters. What they do is they get on the electrical system and they plug in or wire into your electrical system. And then they filter and harmonize the electricity in real time. So that, you know, on any, you know, EMI or EMF meter, you're going to have a really nice before and after. You're going to have a before number of whatever, you know, the combination of what you're getting from the utility, what you're making and what's landing on your system before, and then post filtered it. And these products are in generation 2 and have been proven by, you know, great reputable third parties and our own research to drastically, you know, 80, 90, 95% filter and harmonize the electricity, which does what? It lowers the dirty electricity, which lowers then its subsequent radiation. So you have less radiation in that living space. Is it good for you? Beyond contestation, it absolutely is, because you want to live in as little radiation as possible.
So I noticed that one of the products, now that we're talking about just the dirty electricity that's going through the wires and coming in from solar or from your, you know, power pole on the street, you mentioned to me earlier that you have a way for to measure this. So let me just show this in real time. Maybe you can just talk about, how does somebody know if they have dirty electricity?
See, that's a great question. And, you know, since sometimes maybe we are relegated to the foil hat wearing group, we don't like to deal or trade in fear. And, you know, what we're really trying to sell is a safe space for you to live and occupy. And so ideally, Virginia, you don't have a lot of dirty electricity. Mm-hmm. Let's keep it real. Ideally, you're living in a safe home environment, and you don't need to buy any of our stuff. Why would you buy something you don't need? That's silly. And we don't want you to buy anything you don't need. So I tell people a lot of times, start with a meter. Go to Virginia's site, BioElectric Shield, get a meter, buy with confidence. And if you take it home and you have no dirty electricity at all, Satic, the manufacturer, will back Virginia up and we'll get your money back. Because if you don't need something, then we don't want you to buy something that has no benefit to you or you can't use it. So get yourself a meter or maybe a demo kit and check and see if you've got dirty electricity. And in a perfect world, you don't have any.
I'm also going to show this test kit that you have that we carry, where people can test to see. There's the, I'm sorry, the page is, here we go, not showing very well. But we have a test kit, or you have a test kit that will walk people through finding out what their readings are, and even if their outlets are producing, you know, if they're, in other words, if they're, tell us about the outlet tester. I think that's
so when we really talked about the three main sources, you know, delivering from the utility, you're making it yourself and it's landing on your wiring. One of the ways that we most commonly make it ourselves are with wiring errors. There are, I believe, 7 or 8 combinations of a way that an electrician can wire your outlet. And about 4 of those will actually work. They'll work the power device, but they're not wired correctly. So wiring errors are another main source of dirty electricity that kind of falls into the category of we're making it ourselves. But that's an area where you might not know and not do it intentionally, where if I know that my lighting, a rheostat or a dimmer, is a huge source of dirty electricity that I make in my home, if I know that, I'm equipped with that knowledge, I can simply remove that dimmer or not use it, right? So the best way to remove dirty electricity is not buying products. It's turning off, it's getting rid of the things we call culprits that create it. But once you turn things off or unplug things or change your behavior, you might still have a lot of dirty electricity. A major culprit or reason for that is wiring errors, especially the reversal or bonding of the ground and the neutral. Reversing them or bonding them in the outlet will create huge amounts of dirty electricity, where you don't need to buy anything. What you need to do is simply have that outlet rewired, and it just takes 5 minutes. And so you need an outlet tester. So with our test kit, in that is the equipment to know, do I have dirty electricity? What's the amount? Am I able to filter it and lower it? Which of it am I making, and which of it is because of a wiring error?
great.
So
That's
on the
great.
clipboard, it tells you about the causes of dirty electricity, where it comes from. It comes with sheets of paper that explain to you what you're seeing, why you might be seeing it, how you fix it, how you correct it. You take levels, you take your tests in the morning, in the afternoon, at night. Why? Because what your neighbor does affects you. You might have more lights on in the evening than you would in the day. That makes sense, right? Because we all prefer natural light. Is solar power on in your house or your neighborhood, etc.? Is your air conditioner running? The whole gamut. So we really want to equip you with the knowledge. And darn it, it's fun, Virginia. You walk around with your meter and your clipboard and your pen and stuff, and you take your readings before and after, and you'll deduce it. And in the demo kit, ideally, is what you need to also not just test it and find it, but fix it and remediate it. You need
Right, because, yeah, there they are.
There they are. So you're all set. And if you don't like it, if you don't need it, if you think it's full of beans, send it back. Send it back. But we think you're going to love it, because we've got 95,000 of these sold, and people love them, right? They love them.
Well, knowledge is power, and that's what your test kit provides for people. So, all right. So we're going to continue here to show what you have. So we've talked about the whole home or the plug-in. If you live in an apartment, would you need this big box here, the whole home one, or can you just put the plugs in to?
Great question. So one of the things we have is a little quiz. where do you live? You have an apartment or a home or a townhome? Do you have solar? Do you have a smart meter, etc.? That will help you identify the product that you need. The wiring's great. If you own, you live there, you're going to live there for a while, etc. The plug-in, if you're mobile, and you can take them with you. People take them. Hey, you're going to go stay at a friend's house. Take a plug-in. Take your plug-in for your room. You're going to be in a hotel. Hotels are the worst, right? Because every room has an air conditioner and a little mini fridge and Wi-Fi and routers. They're just a nightmare. And people that are sensitive do not sleep well in a hotel. Take your plugger with you. Or if in your home you have a particular hotspot, you have an area, and as you test, you'll see that some outlets are much higher than others. You can put that right directly into that hot spot and quiet the electricity where you have the biggest need. So I could give a really great argument for each product, just depending on your personal situation. And everyone's situation is different. That's why we have, a blend of products and good information on, how you apply them, which one's best for you.
So I wanted to ask you a little bit more about, so we've gone over, the power supply and your wiring carrying all this dirty electricity. Talk to us a little bit about how the electronics create the dirty electricity. And then once you've done that, then I'm going to share with you where we're using one of those individual plugins.
So part of it, as we talked about, is the difference between alternating current and direct current. And anything with a battery is direct current. So your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your iPad, name it, these are direct current devices. And your lights are probably LED. Those are also direct current devices. And, I grew up in a world that didn't have any of those things, none of them, right? And now every family has multiple. I personally, unfortunately, have 2 phones, one business and one personal. I have 3 iPads, right? I have my laptop. I'm a filthy, dirty electricity creator, and I'm not that terribly unique, right? And so if you've got 4 or 5 family members, you're just accidentally making a ton of it. But then we also have inductive loads. What's that? That's something with the motor. So your washer, dryer, your dishwasher, your fridge, your freezer, your blender, your coffee grinder, you name it. And the way they use electricity also distorts it. And again, I try to tell people, is it all nefarious or not? It doesn't make any difference. It's just some things by their operation create dirty electricity. Dirty electricity creates the radiation. Radiation is bad for biological. It just is what it is. So you got to do things. You got to be very managing of how you operate and when you use those devices, and then also filtering it for when you can't. So like in our family, we do Wi-Fi sparingly, because we do want to download stuff and we do want our thing up to date. We do want the latest games and movies and stuff. We're a normal family. So we say, okay, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., Wi-Fi is going to be on. It's going to be rolling to beat the band. And so, wear your wearables and then get everything up to date, get it downloaded and all that stuff, and get your games and fun out, have some fun. But now that it's time to get quiet and get restful, we want that off. We want the house as quiet and calm as it can be. So we turn the router off. We just simply push the button or unplug it, depending on which of the devices it is we're speaking of, and quiet the house down. And then we do not keep any of these devices plugged in our living space.
That's awesome.
The amount of field that something creates when it's plugged in is far greater. So people want to keep their phone by their bed. Do not keep your phone by your bed. You're so naughty. Turn that thing off. And if you want to charge it at night, charge it completely turned off and in another room when there's no biological in that room. So it takes a little bit of getting used to, maybe getting yourself a little clock radio that runs on a couple of C batteries or whatever, AA batteries rather. And charging these things, you will notice it. I would argue the first or second night, you will notice how much quieter and calmer the room is. And one of the ways that you'll know is with your dreams. What's that mean? Well, I remember as a kid growing up in a land that we just didn't have all this tech device, right? And it seemed like every single morning when I woke up for school, there was a 5 or 10 second regiment where you're dreaming. And so as you wake up, you're like, is this real? Where am I? I'm home, I'm in bed. Okay, I'm not doing that. I'm not running through a field or whatever. And you come to, and then only occasionally do you remember that dream even later through the day. Usually within a few minutes, that dream is forgotten and you're off of the day. I would argue that most people have not woken up in that state of dreaming in days, weeks, or years, or the amount of times they experience that is monthly, yearly, or never, because we're not getting into that deep, theta REM sleep where you really defrag your mind and you get that good rest. Unfortunately, with the Wi-Fi, with the phone, the LTE, and all of it, your brain does receive it. Your brain hears it. Your brain somehow feels it. I won't pretend to know how. I'm not a biological neurosurgeon by any stretch, but your sleep is different. Your sleep is less deep, and dreaming will be a way that you'll know. And so once you get your room, your sleeping area really quiet, really filtered, really shielded, you will wake up with the most lucid dreams. And that is a way that you will know for yourself that you're having deeper, more restful sleep. I don't mean to be on this tangent. I also remember that when I could sleep 6 hours, if I got 5 or 6 hours of good sleep, I may have wanted more because I'm naughty, but I felt rested. I was ready for the day. I could really do something after 5 hours of sleep. And now, even if I get 8 or 9 in an environment with a lot of radiation, I don't feel rested. Sure, I got the hours in bed, but I don't feel as rested. And so I think a lot of people are suffering this, but it's happening to them so gradually they don't know they're suffering.
So when I was speaking with you a little bit earlier, before we started talking to everyone, I mentioned to you that when we put in the whole home unit, we live out in the country, so but that doesn't mean that our home isn't fully wired. So when we put in the unit, the next morning, the house felt really different to me. It felt calm and more like nature was inside our home. And I asked my husband if he had noticed anything, because I didn't want to, prejudice him in any way. And he said, the house feels calmer and nicer. And so I said, that's exactly what I feel too. And then the next thing that we did was we took one of the individual plug-in units and we put it into the main plug that then we attached all the power strips for our home theater. And our living room felt even better. That was great. I mean, the home felt good, but when we added that, and so that's just something for folks to know, that you can put in a whole home unit, but if you have hotspots, as you're saying, like home theaters, that's just another place to put it. We also have downstairs, because we have solar, we have a battery situation. And so we have one in that room as well. So there's a variety of options for where you can use both the plug-in units. And I've also spoken to customers who are in a condo, and I've just followed your instructions by saying, find where your A circuit is, put one there in one room, and find where your B circuit is, since all homes have those 2 circuits that go around. And every time the electricity goes through, it gets cleaned, right? Every time it goes through that plug.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously all these electronics are creating an atmosphere where we're probably not sleeping as well. That's one of the common complaints that I hear from people, particularly if they're electromagnetically sensitive, that they're just not sleeping well. And so this is something that could help them restore their sleep, most definitely, as well as keeping all the electronics off and out of the bedroom. What about the lighting in our homes? Is that an issue?
It's a major culprit. It is really a major culprit. And the light bulb that we grew up with, 130 years of the incandescent light bulb and Thomas Edison, right? That electricity by its functionality. So we talked about how some devices, by their mere functionality, create dirty electricity. The Edison light bulb, by its mere functionality, cleans electricity. It's a beautiful electricity filter, truly so. The Department of Energy says, the average, American home, the 2-bedroom, 2-bath rancher's got, 25 to 32 light bulbs in it. Is that true? I didn't fact check it. Sounds like it probably resonates, right? But the point is, you've got this number of lighting. So before, we had 20 or 30 electricity cleaners in our home. You didn't need our product. You didn't need mine, Virginia. You did not need it because you had a way to do it yourself. Well, those were taken away, weren't they? and they introduced the CFL, the compact fluorescent lamp, the curly Q guy, which is a notorious culprit. Oh, the dirty electricity and the harmonics and the distortion created by those is astronomical. So the argument for this new product is that they use less watts. And that's true. That's true. They use less total real power. But in exchange for that, now every home had 20 filters, cleaners, whatever you want to call that. They don't really filter, they turn it into heat. But now they had dirty electricity culprits, exacerbators. And I read a lot of stuff like in Europe where they had changed, entire countries from one source of lighting to the other, federally mandated it. And how, while the watts had gone down, the amount of dirty electricity, harmonics, EMF, distortion had risen so exponentially. They weren't really sure overall they were saving any electricity or not. Well, how do you know? Well, now the back of your fridge is really warm. It's always going to be kind of warm. It's got a motor back there. It's got a compressor, but really warm. Back of your freezer is really warm. Your tablet charges really slow and really hot. And your laptop is warm and your computer is warm and your DVR is warm. Why? All this reactive power, all these harmonics and distortion, was anything even really saved net? One could argue, either way. But now the impact of the biological is exacerbated times 1,000. And now we've switched from that lighting product for the most part to an LED, a light emitting diode, which again is a direct current thing. Probably a tiny bit less than a CFL, but boy, only marginally. And so again, we have accidentally, not necessarily nefariously, surrounded ourselves with things that create dirty electricity and its subsequent radiation. So yes, I think it's terrible.
Now I'm going to share your solution that you can talk about a little bit.
Yeah, so we had to, we don't sit on our hands around here. We've got an excellent engineering team. Our lead engineer for many years, Brian Havlovic, an engineer of some note in Montana, Dr. Bradley Layton, PhD, PE engineer, and Lynn Churchill, PhD in mathematics and physics. We go to work solving it. And so our light still has, 2 color temperatures, the warm 27, if you like that, for living rooms and kitchens, a brighter 4,000 for bathrooms, maybe your closets where you want to match colors. And they do not create EMF. They do not create dirty electricity, EMI. It's just simply the driver. And we're actually working on a Gen 3 lamp right now. And so all of our lighting is on half price. And it's not half price because they're broken or they don't work. We're simply making a new product now. These work great. It's a great time if you're interested in having really health conscious lighting. So they work on very few actual watts. 9 to 12 watts of actual power, but they don't get hot, so they last a long time, and they create beautiful light. They don't flicker, strobe, or pulse, and they don't create dirty electricity. So
that's awesome. That's great. So we are on our website that I just took off the screen, sending people to your site because your ability to ship these bulbs safely makes way more sense. And we have a dealer code of BioElectric that they can use when they get there. There's one other product that I wanted to have you speak about. And
yeah, please use that code, you guys, because when you go to the store and use BioElectric, you get 10% off your whole cart. So please don't get forgetful on that. Save your dough and use BioElectric. It'll say coupon code somewhere. Your coupon code is BioElectric.
Great. And so this is another really important product. I had a customer call me up and he said, my daughter's bedroom is just the electric panel is on the other side of her bedroom wall. And I just kind of rolled my eyes and said, you have got to be kidding me. So I'd like you to tell people about why this was created and what it would do if you have concerns, and where people would use it.
So we really invented this product because of our house living under power lines. And so when we invented this product, we went up in our attic and we ran this product from eave to eave and gable to gable. And then we grounded it. It's got to be grounded. And then we went up there with our tri-field meter, our bedrooms, and we have a baby in the house. His room, Bodie's room, is at zero electric field, zero magnetic field, dirty electricity readings on our meters, all under 25 in every outlet at all times. So when I think of a shield, just kind of for fun here, when I think of a shield, I think of a knight. I think of somebody in battle, right? They're going to hold up this big shield, and then a sword or a spear or axe is going to bounce off that shield and be deflected by it. That's not how field shield works. Imagine, rather than a shield, imagine a softball net, and you're going to catch a softball net in the pocket of that glove. What this really does is catches that field and then sends it to neutral or ground, excuse me. That's why you can see it's got the little grounding cable. And this is a 9-layer dip. So this is 99.9% pure alcoa aluminum. It is a closed cell polyethylene foam, which is a resistor. And then it's painted inside very liberally with that very famous Y paint that we're all familiar with, right? It comes from Germany. It's $100 a liter. It's exceedingly expensive. And then it's another layer of resistance and shield. And the shield really is, so surface area can act like an antenna. It can catch those EMFs. It can catch those fields and then send them to ground. So you want to use this in a localized area, in what we would call a hotspot. So what's a hotspot? Your electricity meter, your smart meter, your smart meter, your battery area, or your breaker panel. And so you would use this, like I have two in my room. I have one behind my bed because, when you lie in your bed, where do you put your head? By the wall. And this is you could win this. You could win $100 in a bar contest anytime. Nobody that I've ever met puts their head in the middle of the room and puts their feet by the wall. It's silly, right? You put your feet in the middle of the room, you put your head by the wall. Putting your head by the wall, you're doing a couple things. You're putting your head right by the wiring. And your head is your most complex biological area, right? It's where your brain functionality is. And so talking about a field, this is field shield. What's a field? A field has two primary aspects. And one is the intensity, how strong the field is. And the second is the frequency. Here's how I describe that. So let's say I'm gonna punch my fist. There's two things: how hard I punch it, that's the intensity, or how rapidly, how often I punch it. Now, if you're punching a friend, right, and you punch them in the same spot for a long time, oh, take it easy, you're gonna give me a bruise. But if you move that around, well, that's a massage. That feels wonderful. That's $45 an hour, right? So when I'm at rest, now I am really in danger of this field. When I'm moving, I could argue that I'm getting a massage, right? I'm being funny right now. But as you move, it's not hitting you in the same place. It's hitting you in a different space. It's not building up. It's not that cumulative effect. When you lie down, you're not moving. Yeah, you roll around, you adjust your coverage a little bit, but you're really ideally not moving. So now you're being more negatively affected by those fields because they're hitting you in the same spot. And unfortunately, you've stuck your head right by the wiring. So here's two really great places for this: behind your bedboard. So the wiring now is shielded between you and the bed, and you plug it in. That had the single largest effect on my sleep, second only to just turning everything off and getting it out of the room. All right, not to sell you more stuff. The best way to do it: plug the stuff off, get the crap out of your room. That's number one, and that's free to do. Number two, since your wiring is still on, unless you turn the breaker off to your room, which many people do, I don't go that far. I have that shielded there. And another fun place for this is in between your box spring and your mattress. Just slide it in between the box spring and the mattress. You'll never see it. You'll never know it's there. The cord is tiny. It goes over the middle screw. So when you have an outlet, you have an outlet cover. That screw in the middle is grounded. So you just pull that screw out, put the eyelet there, put it back on. It's not your way. You'll never see it. It's behind the bed. And now you're not the antenna lying in the bed, because you are water, right? You're 80-some% water until they chemtrail you, of course, and then you're breathing all this aluminum. And now you're water mixed with an aluminum. Now what are you? You're a walking antenna, right? And so when you're the walking antenna, when you're lying in your bed, you're the path of least resistance. You become the antenna. You become the conductor. By putting this in or near your bed, it becomes the conductor. It
Now
because the
now I
antenna.
understand why you sell them in pairs as well, because if you have a double or a queen or king size bed, you're going to want to get at least a couple of those.
Yes, and one for you and one for your kid. Put this in your kid's room. Put it either against the wall
Yep.
or in the mattress and box spring. And that stuff's kind of expensive, and I'm sorry, it stinks. They're paying to make. They're handmade. That paint is $100 a liter. We buy it online from Germany, just like everybody else does, and that's just what the cost of the stuff going into it and the time to have somebody do it really well with love. That's just what it takes. But what's your health worth? What is good sleep worth? It's worth $100. It is. Good sleep is worth $100. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, as we kind of wrap this up, if there are any stories that you can share with us, or one story of some of your customers who have used either the inline, the home conditioner, or anything that you'd like to share with our folks about why it's so important and what people tell you when they get your products.
So, you and I have been friends and, colleagues in this space for a long time. And you're just very brave. You're an early adopter. You were somebody that was just brave enough, your husband being a doctor and a chiropractor and you being craniosacral, you already knew about, alternative medicine, and you've been brave and owning and speaking your truth. And I love brave. Brave is just one of the most admirable qualities to me. I wasn't as brave in the beginning. I was really afraid sometimes of speaking and owning my truth because I didn't want to be put in the woo-woo category. I had these great engineers. We're paying them a lot of money. Our stuff is real science. But the minute you said EMF and stuff, people would relegate us to that EMF tinfoil hat wearing contingency that I've talked about. And that was, I'm going to admit it, that was hard on my psyche. So what we began doing is just doing in-home demonstrations, maybe having people sit on the carpet in the living room, backs turned to an outlet, and then plugging the unit in and seeing the reaction of the family, see if the family can actually feel it in real time. Because that's something that becomes self-evident, right? You don't have to prove it anymore then. For that family, it's self-evident. And it's not like, we've been in business for a year and we've got 1,000 of these sold. We're in our 15th year. I always say we've got 85,000 installed. My CFO said, no, we're over 100,000 installed now. And if you see us, we only have 5-star ratings. People like it. And with backs turned, usually the female biology, some men can feel it. I can't play the game to turn back. I don't know if it's plugged in or not. I'd love to fib. I'm not going to. I can't tell. But this huge number of human beings can literally tell with their back turned if it's plugged in or not because they can feel it. And they describe it as calmer or quieter are the two words that are most frequently used to describe the product. And after 15 years, we haven't done this test 100 times. We've done it thousands of times. And if you can feel my heart, I'm being authentic here. Thousands of customers can literally feel it and feel the presence in their home. And our testimonial pages are hundreds deep, where people just weren't sleeping well or were being anxious and just feeling, a little verklempt or just hot or anxious or stressed. And when you quiet the space, a lot of people just instantly see their physiology change as their biology changes, and they feel more restful and more calm in your heart. And to put a value on that or to put a price on that, you can't, because anxious just feels awful. Anxious is just one of the most terrible darn feelings, and stressed and fear and all those things. And when you quiet that down in real time, I have grown to really appreciate my life's course, to appreciate my life's path more, and the products that we sell. And it really helps me to be brave and speak and own my truth, because I've seen it 1,000 times in real life and it's real.
Wow, what a great explanation and just experience of trusting your heart and going for helping people feel better. And this is something that you and I have in common. And I so respect and I'm so delighted with, we literally carry every product that you have, because we know that you've got great engineers who have done the research. And some of our products, just for folks to know, if it says buy it now, you'll either get it from us or we may take you over to Satic's site because of shipping issues like the light bulbs and these field screens. and you'll put in the BioElectric and get your 10% off. But I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending the time with us today. I'm sure our customers will really appreciate the in-depth information that you've shared with us. So thank you, and until our next talk.
Thank you so much for what you do, and thank you everyone that listened. We know your time is valuable, giving us a few minutes of your time. We really appreciate it.